All right, so this is a really good question right here. The Northman asks, he said, what do you do? It might be getting him in trouble. Maybe I shouldn't say his name. He says, what do you do if your partner is a person of negative influence and constant demoralization?
If your partner is the negative person in your life and demoralizes you, you got to have that open, honest conversation with him or her, because here's the reality. The number one deciding factor of a man's success is the woman that he chooses as a spouse. That's a fact. The number two deciding factor is impulse control. If you can control your impulses and stay focused on task, the person who cannot control their impulses and impulsively goes into social media, impulsively stops working, impulsively does what they feel like doing, will always fail at life. And the third factor are the thoughts that occupy your mind. If your mind is constantly full of negative, fear-based thoughts, you will produce a negative, fear-based life. And so knowing that the number one determining factor in a man's life, success or failure, is who he chooses as a wife. If you made a bad choice, the good news is she's human. You can help her change by having an open, honest, direct conversation with her from a place of love and saying, look, I love you. I'm a man on a mission. I'm doing this for us and the family. I hope that you can support me. And here's what that would look like. Not just saying I expect you and hope that you would support me, because she might just start not say anything at that point, right? So great, she doesn't demoralize you and she isn't negative. But couldn't she do more? She could be positive.
Right.
She could be like, bro, I'm rooting for you. Hey, man, get up and work harder. Oh, you know what? You want to work on the weekends? No worries, man. What do you need done on my part as your spouse so that you can do your part in winning our financial freedom and sovereignty, right? So you have to let her know, these are my expectations, and this is how you can support me. Words of affirmation, making sure the house is quiet, making sure, like I told my wife, I was like, listen, I want to marry you. Do you want to marry me? Yes. Awesome. Here's some expectations I have. That my wife isn't working a full-time job somewhere, because I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I plan on making a lot of money. And if you have a job, when I want to spontaneously go on a vacation, you have to ask permission to take time off. So that's not going to work, number one. Number two, I want my spouse fully involved with me in my business, because I want my business to be our business. And number three, why I don't want my wife to work a job is because I don't want my kids to ever come home to an empty house like I did growing up, or to see the inside of a daycare. Because no daycare worker is ever going to take care of your kids like your wife can, right? And so for that reason, I set those expectations. Now, if you didn't set those expectations in the beginning, you chose a wife that is negative and demoralizes you, you must have a conversation, set the expectations, and ask for what you want, and then help coach her if she's open to it. Or him. If you're a woman listening to this, and I know plenty of women listen to the show, vice versa. If you got a dude who's just like still being a big man child, you know, a lot of men these days have become man children. And it's like, man, I wanted to have a husband and 2 kids. Now I feel like I've got 3 children and no husband. Like, you better as a woman set your expectations for this dude. And if he can't meet them, then whether you're the dude or the dudette, it's time to make a decision.
Well, the follow-up question is this, like, what if somebody, because this happens a lot, you know, you see it more nowadays than ever, as we're not going to make this a spiritual episode, but as, you know, religion is not on the forefront of a lot of people's mind in general, they will, whether it's a mistake or whether they planned it, they'll have babies. They're not, you know, married. They're kind of like, oh, it kind of happened, whatever it is. And they're not together on the same page. They kind of just, they laid together and, you know, this baby comes out of it. And now you have somebody who maybe had a mission or a vision, a plan for their life, but they already laid with somebody and created a bond forever with somebody who doesn't have that same vision. So let's say that you're on a mission to accomplish something, and, you know, let's say whether it's your spouse or not, you have that conversation with them and they're just not on board with it. Like, what is the solution there?
The solution is you can still be active. First of all, I'm going to get up people's ass for this because you're right. That does happen a lot, and that fucking pisses me off. Someone's like, "Yeah, man, I'm on a mission. I'm going to be like the next you. You watch out." First of all, that it's offending because me watch out, motherfucker. You think I'm standing still waiting for you to catch up? Right. So all the work you're doing to get to where I am, I'm going to be 10,000 miles ahead of you because I am fucking mentally superior. Period. And I've got so much more track record than the average cat. And so but that aside, this cat who's like, well, I've got a vision, I've got a mission, I'm going to be a multimillionaire, I'm going to have all this money. Then how the fuck did you get sidetracked? You have no mission, you have no vision, and you have no desire to have all of that money, because if you did, you would have controlled your impulse. Thing number 2 that fucks men up, impulse control. You would have controlled your impulse, not laid with her and produced a baby. So at this point, now you're attached to this woman. Doesn't mean you have to be married to her, but you're attached to this woman for life, and you might be attached to crazy for life. And you will have to figure out how to give that child a stable life, how to be active in that child's life. Don't use the excuse of, well, you know, the mom's brainwashing the child against me. I've heard that one. If her mom or his mom didn't cock block, I would have been more active in that kid's life. Hey, find a way to be active in that kid's life. Ye literally bought a house across the street from Kim Kardashian just so he could be actively involved in his kid's life.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't care how you feel about Ye at this very moment. We can all agree he may be going off the deep end. Nevertheless, he's human, and that is the human condition. From time to time to go off the deep end, his life just happens to be available on TV and social media, right? We're not so public, and so when we're going off the deep end, it's not as obvious. All that said, you have to still be active in that child's life, but you don't have to necessarily marry that woman. You can't make something bad even worse by marrying crazy, but you better be active in that child's life, and you better figure out a way to maintain some level of peace so that you can keep moving forward.
Did you have a mentor, somebody that you got advice from, marital advice, or somebody that, maybe you asked, Jim at one point? Was he married, by the way? Jim, I learned all about marriage from Jim. Got you.
But in this way, what not to do. And I love Jim Franco. He was on the Empire podcast. By the way, you can look up Jim Franco, my mentor, who was in my book, Man Up. I talked about him in my book, Man Up. And I brought him onto the Empire show back in the day because he's a multimillionaire, owns a software company in the automotive industry. He's now in his 80s. But Jim was a savage. Like, he went through so many women. And one day, I had the good fortune to meet his ex-wife, because his ex-wife came by his office, and I happened to be his office. She came by the ex-wife, beautiful older lady, right? And I said, wow, so you're Jim's ex, huh? Man, he must have been a handful. And she goes, it's because of him that I'll never date another man. I thought she was joking, because then she left. I'm like, Jim, boy, she's funny, huh? He goes, no, she was being serious. Like, I was so bad to her, Bedros, that she will never date again. Like, she's just going to stay single the rest of her life, and as much as I love Jim Franco, the reality is that he had multiple wives, and he just was bad to them. So I learned the opposite. I learned to be attentive, to make the right choice, to set my expectations, what I want, and make sure that we're aligned as a unit when we create a family, because a family is no different than a business. We have our own family core values. We have our family mission. We have our family vision statement. We have all of that, just like we do here for the multitude of our businesses that we have. Fit Body Bootcamp has a vision statement, a mission statement. It has core values. It has a leadership team, all of that. And every person in the building knows their role and responsibility. Every person in my household, including the dog and the one-eyed cat, know their role and responsibility. And that is how a household thrives. Doesn't mean that we don't experience shit, because we do, because it's the human condition. My businesses, as well designed and staffed and systematized, we still experience hiccups. That's part of life. But to just haphazardly marry someone, have a child, and think that somehow this family is going to thrive when you took no effort in designing a life, that's a fallacy.